Good morning. My name is Tim Saulsbury, and I'm a physical therapist in Sioux City. Today is Good Friday. It's a beautiful morning, and Good Friday is very important in our religious life, but it's also the time to plant potatoes. So we, this morning, are going to look at and explore the proper ergonomics or the ability to work safe while planting potatoes. So in front of me, I have the tools that I'll need to get the potatoes in the ground. As you can see, I have my cut potatoes, and I prepared them last night to give them time to dry. I have my tools, a hoe, which I'm going to make my row with. Some people use actually a row making machine. In this case, I'm just going to use my hoe, and I have my shovel. Now, when you're dealing with work-related stresses or forces, there's several different things that come into play. And in regard to what we're going to be looking at, we're going to be talking about contact force and vibration force. Now, vibration force is going to probably get you when you're using a tiller to hoe your garden or break up the dirt. But it's always a good idea to reduce forces. And so if you're going to be using a shovel or a hoe, the sharpness and the cleanliness of the cleanness of that tool will reduce the amount of force that it takes to turn the dirt or get into the dirt. And therefore, it will reduce the amount of contact force on your hands. So it's always a good idea to keep your tools clean and maybe take a few strokes with your file to make sure that the edge is sharp and you're ready to get into the dirt with a minimal amount of contact force. And of course, Stella's helping me this morning. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to load up the potatoes into this bucket, and I've got my hammer along. It's a heavy hammer, but that's what I'll use to drive my stakes with, and we'll go from there. I've got my equipment loaded up in my wheelbarrow, and it's not a heavy load like it might be if I was doing concrete or moving dirt, but we still want to use proper body mechanics when lifting, and a wheelbarrow is a lift and a push. So, I think that's all right. So you always want to bend your knees and keep your back straight. So bend your knees into the handles, lift with your legs, and away we go. Okay, so I'm going to start my row. First I'm going to mark my borders, and I'll start with a stake. And once again, you can see my seed bed, my garden bed is prepared. And if you notice, I didn't bend over at the waist. I went down onto my knee, okay? And so that's always a good idea to avoid the stress of bending. Now, bending is a natural function, and we do it a lot, but when it's repetitive and frequent, and if we throw some lifting into it without proper mechanics, that's when we run into the contact stresses that can cause injury. Once again, I'm going down on one knee, keeping good body mechanics. So most gardeners will want to define their row one way or another. Now, potatoes are not like carrots or beans, but because you plant them in mounds. But in this case, I do want it to be a straight row when they come up. So that's what I'm going to do. Now, what we don't want is to get into a slumped over type of a position. We want to get nice body mechanics, use your legs, define your row as well as you can. Even if a cat is in your way, you can get around him. So we'll see how straight I can get this. Looks like I'm doing all right. You can see I have a lot of straw in my garden that I put it to bed with in the fall to let it mulch in and rot. Okay, pretty straight. I'm going to kind of make it a little better here. Very nice. Okay, so now my potatoes, like I said, I've already cut them, and I want to keep them about a foot or 18 inches apart. So I can do this a couple of different ways. One, I can start my row just by kneeling, or I can put my potato on my, if my back is sore and I don't want to put any stress on it, I can just set them down like that and go down the row. I'm eyeballing my distance. I can shorten it up depending on what I want to do or how far apart I want my plants to be. Potatoes, of course, are a root crop, and they need a little room for their roots to spread and sprout potatoes. Very well. So, with that being accomplished, my first row, without putting any significant stress on my back with bending, I can come in and I can start to cover them up and make a small mound. And so I can bend over and put a stress on my back, because this is going to be repetitive. I've got one row planted, but perhaps I'll plant 5 more. So this is where I want to be mindful of reducing the stress and the contact force on my back and arms and hands. So I come in, bend at the waist a little bit, bend at the knees, use the power of my legs, cover them up. Very well. So that's planting potatoes with minimal amount of ergonomic stress on your back, arms, and hands. Hope that's helpful. Everybody does a little bit different, but this way has been successful for me and helped me to not only raise good potatoes, but remain injury-free. So good luck out there and stay healthy.